It just says you can reach more people, I guess, if you put a title. All right, you should be seeing me in a minute, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cute top.
Thanks. Thanks. I'm starting to run out of clothes to wear that I haven't done in a live or in a classroom yet. I need to go shopping.
Is that a Target find?
No, this one was actually Nordstrom. I think last summer, actually.
Cute.
Thanks.
As we're talking fashion.
I know. Hello, everyone. It looks like some people have jumped on. I mean, fashion is important too. Trying to figure out where to get new summer tops. Thank you guys for joining. Welcome. I'll give you about another minute for people to get on and we'll get started. Jess, can you see everything okay?
I can.
Okay,
yeah, looks
perfect.
Good.
Hey, Audra. Debbie, Anna, Nadisha. Hey, guys.
Hi, ladies.
Hi. Hi, Katie. Hello. Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday. Yeah.
Hump day. It's Monday again.
Yay.
You could go ahead and get started.
Okay, perfect. I was going to wait for a few more people, but I just saw that the number jumped up. So, hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining. It is an honor and a pleasure to be back with you again on Keune Academy Live. For those of you that are joining for the first time, my name is Amber Skrzypek, and I am the Creative Technical Ambassador for Keune North America. And on the phone with me, I have Jessica Mills, which is our Vice President of Education and Shows. She's going to help deliver your questions and your comments to me. So please I want this to be as interactive as possible. So share if you have comments or questions or if ideas for another program that you would like to see. Type those into the chat and she'll make sure that she lets me know and we'll make sure that we'll get your ideas on the calendar. We're always looking for new creative things that we can share with you while you guys are watching from home or your salons, wherever you are today. So again, thank you for joining. Today we're going to be talking about color dissection. I'm really excited to share this with you today. This is actually going to be a sneak peek for you guys. This is one of our field education programs. So we do teach this in the salon. So an educator can come in and do either a hands-on or a look and learn version of color dissection. So this is just a little sneak peek into what that program looks like. What we're going to be talking about is how you take an inspiration image such as this one and turn it into a technique. I know in the very beginning of my career, and still sometimes to this day, still have a hard time breaking down the elements of an inspiration picture or just a look in general and how to recreate it on our guest. So we're going to be talking about head shapes, directions and movement, techniques, and placement. So we've got a lot to talk about in our 1 hour program. So again, if you have any questions, make sure you type those in. First and foremost, anytime that we talk about color or any service in the salon, it's always a great idea to start with a really thorough consultation. And I know with my guests, I always encourage them to bring in inspiration pictures. And if they don't have any, I show them some of my own, whether it's my own work or the Pinterest boards that I've created to share with them as lookbooks. I make sure that we're on the same page as far as what they want the outcome to be. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know there's times that clients will bring in 4 to 5 different pictures that look nothing alike. And you're like, wow, we're a little bit all across the board right now. But there's probably one thing about those pictures that they have in common that client's really looking at, and that's really what they want to walk away with that day. So it's important for us to figure out what that one element is about that picture or 5 pictures so that we can recreate it on them so that they can leave happy and satisfied. And the best way to do that is by asking them open-ended questions. I know a lot of times they bring in pictures and we're like, oh, so you like this color or you like where the light hits. The more we can engage them with open-ended questions versus getting yes or no answers out of them, the more they'll become involved in the conversation and be able to communicate with us what they actually want. So instead of asking them if they like the color, what about this picture do you like? So just flipping the words around. So what about this picture do you like? Is there anything you don't like about the picture? So changing the verbiage up slightly so that you can get them to interact gives us more information so that we can make the best educated decisions possible as how to get them there, the placement and the product that we need to use to deliver that end result to them. So again, pictures are super important, making sure that we communicate about what it is about the picture that they like. It could be that they like the tone of it and it has nothing to do with the placement. So it's really asking those questions to, again, get the end result that we're looking for. Once we have all the questions answered and once we're really confident about what they want, then it's time for us to do our work kind of behind the scenes. So we gather all the information in the front when we're talking to our client and take that information and then we take it basically to the back room, right? Or in their dispensary and put all that information together to figure out the product that I need to pick, the technique that I need to pick, the placement that I need to use, and really how to execute this whole thing. So we're gonna start talking about that by talking about the head shape. And the head shape plays into the end result in a big way. Because I know in the past I've had the perfect product picked out. I think I've executed it with the right technique, but I didn't quite place it on the head in the right way to get the spill or the fall of color that I was looking for. So let's break down the head form so that we can really figure out where I place color and how it impacts the end result. So we're going to start to dissect the head form first. So we have it broke down into, and hopefully you guys can see this. If not, let Jessica know and we can try and slide it up closer. We have it broken down into 3 horizontal sections and then 3 vertical sections. So let's dissect this one first. And if you'll notice, we have a separation at the parietal ridge and a separation at the occipital bone. In those 2 areas, we have a change of direction, meaning if I place the technique in one of these areas, it has a completely different outcome than the other, just because of the shape of the head. So if you were to place your hands flat on the side of your head, where your hands leave your head forward, that's going to be your parietal ridge. Everyone has one, but it might not be the same on everybody because some people may have a smaller head, some people may have a larger head. So it's really important that we figure out where that parietal ridge lives on everyone, because the color is going to impact the end result differently, whether you place it above it or below it. And I know in the lives in the past, I know I've heard Jessica talk about it a lot and George talk about the parietal ridge, and you're gonna hear me talk about it again because it's such a key point in your color applications to really get the end result that you're looking for. So if you place color above the parietal ridge, you're gonna get a pop off of the scalp and movement. So you're gonna get a more dispersed end result, a more blended end result, and you have more flexibility because the hair has motion to it. If you place color below the parietal ridge, where your hands lay flat, that color is going to move directly towards the ground, meaning I have to encourage movement here, where my hands are flat, versus on the top. Movement's going to naturally happen here. It's not going to naturally happen here. So we have to create movement below the parietal ridge, meaning if I place the same foil here that I do here, I get 2 completely different end results. So it's really important that you're finding where that is because you can really utilize it to your advantage when you place your foils or your balayage in those sections. So we're going to call the top part of our head form the surface. And when you think about the surface, just like we talked about, that spill of color over the top. So your surface is basically going to cover everything below that, unless you have a really short layered haircut where then you'll see the top, the middle, and the bottom. But your surface really gives you that veil of color, that pop of color, and it creates a lot of movement versus our next section down that we just talked about, which is the interior. In the interior section, this is where we can create a lot of depth and dimension. So like we talked about, we have to encourage movement in this section here. And if you've ever placed a horizontal foil there, you know what I'm talking about. That thing went right to the ground, which is great if you're trying to create a really impactful end result. But if you want that color to move, usually diagonal lines are best in that interior portion to still build in dimension, but also build in movement. And then last but not least, we have this little section at the bottom called the nape area. So that falls right below the occipital bone, and everybody has one. Again, it's right if you place your hand on the back of your head, where your hand leaves the head, that's where your occipital bone is. It's kind of like that little concave area where color can either get lost or really impact the end result depending on the haircut that they have, which is a huge part of the nape. What we do in here affects the perimeter of the hair. So whether they have a short bob or a long layered haircut, the color choice that I pick here really emphasizes the perimeter. I'll never forget one of my first classes that I went to. Hopefully you guys know who Roy Peters is. If not, definitely look him up. He's one of my mentors. But in the first class that I saw of his, which was one of my first in the industry, is he said these two phrases, and it stuck with me ever since. Dark shows form, light shows texture. If you've ever seen Roy, you know you've heard that saying before. Dark shows form, light shows texture. If I keep this nape area dark, it's going to strengthen the perimeter of, say, a short bob haircut. If I add a lot of highlights in that area, it's going to soften or weaken that perimeter line, showing more texture. So you can create visual texture by just utilizing lighter shades versus darker shades. So another way that you can use that to your advantage in that nape area is if your client has really skinny hair or very fine hair and they want to be light, keep the perimeter, especially the nape, darker. So if your client has skinny hair, they have really fine hair, keep the perimeter darker. Everything else can be bright, bright blonde, but just to do a fine weave of low lights, maybe back to back around the perimeter, because it'll keep the strength in the haircut and make their hair look thicker. So little key area in the nape where you can really impact the end result, especially with a haircut, if they have fine, skinny hair. So surface, interior, nape. And then we break down that surface area into 3 vertical sections. And your front one is the hairline. You then have your profile and your crown. So hairline, profile, and crown. Now you're probably thinking, Amber, that hairline is way more than just the hairline. And it is. If you look at most head forms, once you reach the high point, I'm trying to make sure that you guys can see me. Once you reach the high point of the head, from there forward, your hair is going to move towards the face. From the high point back, it's going to spill towards the back. The reason that we incorporate so much more hair into that hairline is because that hair is going to impact whether it's your money piece or your detailed hairline. That hair all plays into it as well. So if you're struggling with like getting that really perfect money piece or that detailed hairline, make sure that you're going back far enough because that hair is still going to impact what you see around your client's face. From there, we move back into the profile, and this is probably one of the most important parts of the surface area because this connects the top to the bottom and the front to the back. One of my favorite things to do is when I'm in like Target or the grocery store and people are looking at the shelves, looking at the profile of their hair. And a lot of times they're like, man, how did they get that to blend so seamlessly from the front to the back? Or I'm sure you've seen it, or you have the client or the person shopping that we're like, man, it looks like 2 different colors in the front and the back half of their head. And chances are, sometimes if we don't go far enough back, we get to this separation between the profile and the crown, giving us 2 different end results. So it's really important that when we're doing our profile, that we go just beyond the high point right to the top of the crown where that's going to spill over. And in two of our techniques, we're going to show ways that you can incorporate that profile in so you get the perfect spill towards the face. And then last but not least, the crown area. This area is usually where hairdressers want to like pull some of that hair out because there's usually cowlicks or whorls that give us a run for our money. I'm going to show you a way that you can foil in that crown area without getting weird separation and that it spills evenly from side to side without getting like digits or lines in that crown area. So that is the dissection of the head form. Jess, do we have any questions or anything about that?
Nope, you're good so far.
Perfect. Okay, so continuing with dissecting, now that we know the areas of the head, we know that there are certain lines that create movement that we can put into those areas. And I know you guys have all seen them before. And there's 4 different lines. So we have diagonal forward, diagonal back, vertical, and horizontal. Whether we're doing a block color technique, whether we're doing foils, whether we're doing balayage, we have to place it on the head in one of these 4 fashions. It either has to be diagonal forward, diagonal back, vertical, or horizontal. So we are implementing movement of some sort, no matter the technique that we're doing. So by utilizing diagonal forward lines, I can encourage color to move towards the face. So say my client always loves to wear her hair forward. Most of the times I'm going to go in with diagonal forward, either foils or balayage, to accentuate that forward motion. So wherever you place the color in the direction that they wear the hair, you're going to create strength. If they want softness, I could still place those diagonal forwards, but if she pushes her hair back and away, I'm going to create a more soft, diffused look. So I can really pick which direction that I want depending on how they wear their hair, which is why it's so important that in that consultation, we're talking about the haircut also, and not waiting until we get to the haircut portion to talk about that, because we can really detail our color to emphasize or soften their haircut. So diagonal forwards move color towards the face. And if you ever get confused when looking at the head, which way is diagonal forward, which way is diagonal back, or what kind of end result am I creating, if you envision a little red ball at the top of that section, so if I've got diagonal forward, if I envision a ball here, the color's gonna roll where the ball would roll. So I'm gonna move color towards the face with diagonal forward and away from the face with a diagonal back. So I have 2 different options to create movement within. And then I have a vertical line. We know vertical lines create separation, they add length. Another great way to make short hair look longer or long hair look even longer, take vertical sections across the back of the head. It'll add length and elongate the hair, giving you a longer visual end result. And then last but not least, we have our horizontal. This is going to create width, and you're going to get the most visual end result of color by using a horizontal. So you're going to get the most surface coverage by utilizing a horizontal line. So if you're trying to go for maximum blonde, if you're trying to get the most coverage as possible, horizontal sections are going to be your best friend. Not your best friend if you're trying to build dimension, because horizontals on top of horizontals are going to cover and hide whatever is underneath. So you're going to get the most dimension with either verticals or diagonals. Great, so we talked about the head form, we talked about lines, and now what it really comes down to is what technique do we pair with both of those to get the end result that we're looking for. So the first one we're going to talk about is just foils, which we do every single day in the salon. We still doing okay, Jess?
Yeah, we're doing great. Everyone's loving it.
Perfect. Happy to hear that. I know, like I said, it's a lot of information in a little bit of time, but hopefully we can get through as much as possible. So the first one, foils, and I've got a few inspiration pictures here, all things that I found on our Keune North America page on Instagram. So they all, I don't know if you guys can see, but they all have the handles of the artist in the corner. And I wanted to utilize some of those because a lot of times that's what our clients are bringing in, are really popular pictures on either Instagram, Facebook, or Pinterest. So the first one is foils. And we know that foils have been around for a long time. It's our tried and true technique that we always go back to, and it's what we use for maximum lightness. But we know what we put in the foil can vary, whether it's a baby light or a medium stitch or slices or a bigger weave. So to kind of show you the impact that each would make, I got creative yesterday and made some swatches or wefts to show you the different end results of each stitch or technique, and then we're going to lay them on the head so you can kind of see the spill that it would create. So this would be a baby light stitch. You'll notice that there's just as much dark as what there is light, which is why we need to do more baby lights to get that maximum lightness, is because we're really about half and half when it comes to what we're picking up and what we're leaving out. So when we pick our technique, remember what you put in a foil is just as important as what you're leaving out of the foil. So that's your baby light. If you're looking for a little bit more lightness and a little bit more contrast and dimension, you can go to more of a medium weave. So you'll notice that you can start to see a little bit more of the blonde, and it has a little bit more contrast against the dark. So this is going to give you, again, more separation, more dimension, which is sometimes is necessary in those high density areas, like right in the back of the head, like right above the occipital bone, where the majority of the hair lives, I think, on the head. Sometimes it's more important to go in with a heavier stitch so that you can actually see it for an end result. And then last but not least, you start getting into the 90s vibes, which I swear are coming back, maybe not in this big of a way, but sometimes this is necessary. And I know a lot of us go, man, that's really high contrast. But if you're working on really coarse hair, high density, or curly hair, sometimes this is necessary. I don't know about you, but I know that I worked my little tail off on super curly hair. This was way in the beginning of my career. Foiled it beyond belief, but I foiled it with this. I rinsed it out and I went, what happened to all of my foils and where did my lightness go? That curly hair just basically devoured these baby lights, leaving me with a visually lighter end result, but you couldn't actually see the lightness. When I should have gone in with something a little bit stronger and bolder to really accentuate the curls and make sure that they didn't get lost in the end result. So sometimes this is necessary. Now, when we place these on the head, that's where the impact really starts to change. So this is our medium foil. I've got Emma back with us. So we talked about the top surface area and how this spills over everything else. And I tried to make sure all these wefts were about foil size. About foil size is about a peace sign. So if I placed a horizontal foil on the top of her head, because of the way that the hair moves and the head shape happens, this hair doesn't just live in this one area. I get separation and movement, giving me a softer end result. You're still going to see those separations because it's a medium weave, but I create a softer end result than what I did if I would have moved this horizontal then below the parietal ridge. So I get a really impactful end result, but it's still soft and diffused. If I take the same section and move it below the parietal ridge, get her hair clipped out, by the way. There we go. I'm going to get a stronger end result, and you're going to be able to see, there we go. Got to get the lighting just right. You'll be able to see each individual strand of light because I don't have that motion and that pop off of the head like I do above the parietal ridge. So I'm encouraging it to move straight down towards the floor by using a horizontal line. if I tilted it and it came in diagonal, I'm now encouraging movement within the hair, and I'm getting a nice diagonal back motion, and the color's moving away from the face. Or I can do the exact opposite and create a diagonal forward, and now I have motion towards the face. So really in that interior section, it's important to create that motion and that movement by either utilizing diagonals in your sectioning or diagonals in your application in your foil. So hopefully that helps with the visual of what happens above and below. All right. So let's break down this first inspiration image, and then we're gonna create it on our Emma. Where'd I put my marker? So just like we talked about, we have 3 horizontal sections. And then that top section gets broken into hairline, profile, and crown. So from there, we can really start to break down and see what's happening in each of these sections. And when I look at inspiration pictures, one thing that I'm looking for is their direction in movement within the color application. And I can see in this hairline that the color is moving away from the face, and the haircut accentuates that. So I know in this front area that I'll need diagonal back lines to create that same movement of that color moving away from her face. When I look in the profile, what I can see is this highlight, even though it may not be the same color, I can follow it from her part the whole way down to the perimeter. So I have one highlight that doesn't move, meaning that there's no direction to it. There's not a diagonal back and not a diagonal forward. So I could use 2 different options to create that. I can use vertical lines and do a mohawk section across the top where it's going to spill and give me an even application from scalp to ends. Or I can go in with a horizontal because it's going to give me the same motion still from scalp to ends. So for maximum coverage, we talked about using horizontals. So I would go in with horizontals across that profile section, and that's going to give me that spill of color from top to bottom. I then see in the crown area that that color moves forward. So it's almost like I have back, flat, and then forward again. And hopefully you guys can see how the color transitions from light to darker, and it gives the appearance of that motion forward. So I can come in with diagonal backs that pivot, giving me a rounded end result on that top. And that's what we're going to do on our mannequin. Is we're going to just focus on this surface area now because we can't really see the perimeter, but you guys can see that her perimeter is all light. So in that interior and that in that nape area, she's probably a mix of highlights throughout and then balayage sections in between. We are going to use our 1511. I feel like in the last couple videos that I've done, they've all been lightener. So I decided to change it up a little bit and use one of our highlight options, which is our 1511. So this is from our Super Ash Blonde series. I love using the 1500 series as like a mid-light through the hair. It'll give you 4 to 5 levels of lift on natural hair. So if you're trying to save time in the salon, working on natural hair and not having to tone afterwards, definitely think about reaching for the 1000 series or the 1500 series, depending on the level that you're starting with. So this mixes 1 to 2 with developer. So 1 part 1500 series to 2 parts of either 30 or 40 volume. And since I'm working on a mannequin, I am working with 40 volume today. Any questions, Jess?
No.
Nothing? Is there anybody out there? I'm just kidding.
Yes. you can send a shout out to all of our ladies around the world. They're with us.
Oh, good. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for joining. I keep seeing people pop on and saying hello. So it's nice. That's the one downside about doing this is you can't read all the comments as you go. So hopefully everyone's enjoying it and loving it. All right. So when we section out Emma, we want to go back to, again, that hairline, profile, and crown area. And the way that we do that, and Emma's a little bit of an oddity. They're kind of like an avatar. Their high points are in weird places. So I'm going to lay my comb on the top of her head, and I'm going to rock it forward. And where the comb leaves the head, that's going to be the front of the profile section where it meets the hairline. So again, if I lay my...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I do have a question for you now.
Yay!
How did you decide to go diagonal backwards in the hairline? Can you explain that again?
In the hairline, yes, absolutely. So when we look at the picture, you can see that not only the haircut starts to move back, but now that I drew on top of it, it's probably hard to see, but there's a little bit of dark that covers what's underneath. So when we go diagonal back, I'm almost hiding some of those highlights behind what's going to spill over top of it. And this section that spills over top is what gives that shadow that's right above it, or that depth right above it. If I went in with diagonal forwards, you can still create that shadow, but the movement is going to be more on the surface than underneath. Hopefully that answered it and makes sense. Okay, cool. All right, so again, I laid my comb on the top, rock it forward where the comb leaves. That's going to be where my profile ends and my hairline starts. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the back. Lay it on the top of the head, rock my comb back. Where that comb leaves the head, that's going to be where my profile stops and my crown starts. I'm going to bring that together to create a triangle on the side of the head, and I'm going to bring that down to our parietal ridge, because we said, again, that's where our change of direction is. So this is going to spill over top and really creating a veil of color over everything underneath. I'm going to clip this up and away for now. And that'll be the last section we'll work on. So we'll work on the front, the crown, and then come back to the interior so that those foils lay nicely over top. I'm like Michael Jackson here. I forgot to put on the other glove. I was like, something feels weird. Okay, so I've got my 1511 mixed up. We're going to start to lighten around her face. Now, again, on the mannequins, you're going to find that the hairlines are a little bit wonky, kind of like some of our clients' hairlines. I always like starting at the bottom and really looking at the landscape first before I get started. Knowing that I want to keep these at a diagonal back, that's really going to decide how I take my section, how small my foils are going to be in the front. And sometimes you just have to do little baby sections in the front until you get to where most of the hair is. So I'm going to start with diagonal backs right on that front hairline piece. And to keep it soft, I am just going to come in, I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, come in and do baby lights around the face. So I will start to get bigger with my sections as far as the stitch as I move back into the hairline. But I think it's important that right around the face that you have really soft and natural highlights, which is the best technique would be to use baby lights. So that section's super small, anchored onto the foil with my 1511, brush it up in. If you're really wanting a strong money piece, you can go horizontal the whole way up to the top of the foil. If you do vertical, that's going to keep it soft and more diffused, leaving more of a little bit of a shadow root. And then saturate down through mid-length and ends. I did leave a little bit of hair out underneath. That's completely up to you, completely up to your client. If they pull their hair up, it gives them a little bit more grow out period, a little bit more grace if they have that little bit of dark veil to cover so that their highlight's not growing right out at the scalp. So I like to leave a little bit of that. And honestly, by the time this all falls over it, when she styles it, you're really not going to see that part anyway. I'm going to come in right above that. And I'm going to do a back-to-back foil. So I just stitched right on top of my previous section. so that I get that really big pop of blonde right in the front. My section size did get, as far as stitch, get a little bit bigger because my density changed. So right on that hairline, I had really skinny fine hair. Now I'm starting to get into a little bit thicker hair. The density changed so I can increase my stitch size for the same amount of impact in the end result.
Amber, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you up against her part, or do you off-center her part line when doing the front and top?
Great question. So am I right against her part, or did I go across it? I am right at her part right now. So she wears a center part. I'm right on the part line. So if this was my client, we're only going to do one side right now. I'm going to do something else over here. But if this was a client, I would do the exact same thing right up to her part line so that it's even on both sides. Now, if they switch from one side to the other, I would either stagger it, meaning that I might bricklay these slightly, or not bricklay, chevron. Is that the one where they overlap a little bit? Yes, chevron over the part line to get a little bit of movement from one side to the other. So if they flip it, it's still the same on both sides. But for her center part, yeah, I'm right at her part line. Great question. Thank you for that. I'm then going to leave out, so we did those back to back, which means that I have some left over here from my previous stitch. I'm going to leave that out and then do another stitch on top of it. I don't usually pre-section out my stitches. I like to just kind of free stitch right on the scalp. I feel like it gives me a more natural end result versus sectioning and then stitching it out. What you'll want to make sure of though is that you can still see through your section. So the thinner the section, the lighter the end result will be. So keep that in mind. If you're not getting the hair as light as what you want it, look at your section size width-wise. So how deep is your section? If you're picking up a lot of hair, it's not going to saturate through, meaning you're not going to get the lightest end result possible. If you're not looking for maximum lightness, go ahead and take a deeper section. I know, when was it? A few weeks ago, Jessica Bartolucci shared a great foiling technique with 20 foils, I think? Amazing technique. Her section sizes were a lot bigger, which is completely fine if you're not looking for that, say, up to 7 levels of lift or up to 5 levels of lift that you could get with, say, like the 1500 series. So it really just depends on where you're starting and where you want to end up, and knowing that your section size will impact that as an end result. I'm going to drop out that next section, leaving a little bit of dark, and then weaving right above that. And then we'll do one more section before moving to the back. All right, saturate this. Now, if you want to incorporate teasing into this front section, by the inspiration picture, you can tell that all of her lightness goes right to the scalp until you get to that last section where you start to see a little bit more depth, which would be this section right here. So if I wanted a little bit more depth, and knowing that this is still a piece that falls over that front, what I could do is take this piece, pinch it towards the very end, and take the hair from the very ends and push it the whole way down to the scalp. Remember what we said, it's just as important as the hair you leave out as the hair you put in. What I've just done is create basically a low light. So all this hair is going to come back out when I go to rinse it. And I'm gonna build in a little bit of a shadow at her base so that, again, when that hair comes out, I create a little bit of a shadow right over top of the bright that's underneath.
Amber, do you ever find that you have challenges getting out the teasing portion when you have to take out the foils at the end?
Great question. Yes. So do I have challenges getting the teasing out after the foils are done processing? Yes and no. So I would definitely say there's a strategy to it. Teasing is great to build in dimension and create softness. Not great when you're trying to get it out. What I found is if you take the foils out, rinse it. I will usually put a little bit of like either aftercolor balsam or conditioner in the hair and use a wet brush to softly brush it out, and then shampoo it. Once you hit shampoo to it and start like massaging it, I feel like you're locking it in. So it's really in the prep to get it out. I like to use conditioner and a wet brush to kind of release it. So hopefully that helps.
Great tip.
Thanks.
Yeah, great tip.
Okay. So, all right, so we've got diagonal back in the front. And remember, we're just worrying about that surface right now. Now we're going to move on to the back side. And remember, we're going to use diagonal forwards in this back section. If you notice, we already created a diagonal forward by having the back of that triangle meet a point right above the ear. So really, I'm going to follow that and then pivot and make small like pie-shaped sections off of that. So what I'll get is a diagonal forward motion here, still slightly diagonal forward, meaning it's going to move towards the face. And then as I pivot, that color will start to then spill over the back, giving me coverage through that crown area and the back of her head. So I'm working smarter, not harder. I'm using less foils, but getting more coverage. So I'm going to try and do this without getting in your way. So I typically would be standing here, but so that you guys can see, I'm just going to stitch right along that back triangle section with a medium stitch. So again, really just depends on what you guys talked about in the consultation. If they want a soft and more blended end result, or if they want that to pop more, you could do a bigger stitch than this if you wanted to. But again, remember this is going to be right on the surface, so they're definitely going to see it and impact the end result. We're going to saturate down to mid-length and ends. Fold up, and then we're going to pivot from there. So I'm going to clip this foil up out of the way. Turn her, and then I'm going to create a little like pie-shaped section. Fold that up, and then stitch right along that new line that I just created. Making sure that your point comes back to that crown and that point of origin. And that's what's really going to give it that spill of color. So you'll still get brightness here, but now we're creating movement and dimension because we have dark in between. Am I blocking? Can you guys see?
It's good.
Okay. Trying to stay out of the way. And we're going to do 3 foils in this section. If we were going the whole way across and doing more, we would definitely do more sections than that. But our next section is usually where you start to encounter the curls or the whorls, and like cowlicks is right in the center crown. So when I get my next triangle piece sectioned out and clip that out of the way, I'm almost vertical at this point. So my diagonals switched and have gone almost vertical. Again, this is usually where curls or whorls or cowlicks happen. If they do have a strong cowlick there, what you can do is weave on one side, turn the head, weave on the other side, and then foil the hair that's left out in between. And I can't remember, I think this was a George Algeretti tip that he showed me a long time ago. I think, if it wasn't you, George, whoever it was, thank you. Sometimes I forget the things I picked up along the way, but stitching on both sides of it will help give you separation in that cowlick so that when the hair splits, it doesn't create a strong line. How are we doing out there?
Doing good.
Doing
Everyone's
good. Perfect.
loving the information.
Great.
Oh, wait, I have a question.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, no, it's more of a comment. It's from Debbie. She said, just to be sure, if I heard it correctly, do you guys call it cowlicks?
Oh. Oh, I guess we do have people from around the world. Yes, we do call it a cowlick. I don't know why, but yes, we do call it a cowlick. Basically, the whirl that happens where hair doesn't grow in the same direction.
So let's ask our friend Debbie, what do they call it in the Netherlands?
Yes, please let us know. While she's typing that in, I'm going to move on to that center section. And this is a section that we said moves consistently from the scalp down to the perimeter. So I'm going to come in with horizontal sections because it's going to give me the most impact, the most coverage with the least amount of work. You can either start from the bottom and work your way to the top or top to bottom. The amount of hair you leave out in between really is how much depth do you want to create. So I can see that it's a little bit darker in here, meaning that they probably didn't do back-to-back sections. So I'm going to come in and take a stitch right on the hairline, and I'm going to leave that out. Again, I like to kind of have that little veil of dark over top to create a little bit of separation between the light and the new growth as the hair is growing back in. And then I will come right underneath that and stitch a medium stitch and then foil this and work down horizontal from there. Did we get that answer? Jess, are you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I was
Okay.
reading Debbie's response.
Oh, I always think that I lose you when I don't like hear you right away. Okay. So horizontal. We're going to leave some hair out in between. Again, just depending on how much depth you want to create. We're going to fold that over and come in right below that with another horizontal stitch. And then continue to work down the head the exact same way. You can see that my stitch, definitely like I said, medium stitch, I want it to be visible in the end result, meaning there's more hair here, there's a higher density here. So I could come in with a baby light. It's going to get lost. So depending on how soft or how blended, or if you want to be able to see those ribbons of light, would be dependent on like how big your section size is for your stitch. So then I would just continue to work down from there. And for the sake of you guys not watching me just foil, we're going to end it with 2 foils, and then know that you would just keep horizontally foiling down from there. And that's going to give you the same spill and fall of color that you see on our foil inspiration picture. Is there any other questions on that?
Yeah, what brand of foils are you using?
Ooh, great question. From our, love them. So they come in different weights, come in different sizes. You can either rip your own or have the pull-ups. I love them. They're a little bit thicker, so they take some getting used to at first, but they stay. They don't slide and they don't move. So I really enjoy using them. Thanks for the question. All right. We're going to jump over to the balayage side. And the inspiration picture that we have for this, when we dissect this one out, the motion is a little bit different than before in our foil section. So if we section out her parietal ridge, her interior, and her nape, we're going to focus on this top section here, that surface area again, and how it spills over everything else. So when we divide up her crown, profile, and hairline, we can see how the color really moves across the head. So if you look, you can actually see that the color is a little bit lighter towards the back, gets a little bit darker towards the interior, and then lighter again around the face. Not a lot of light towards the top, probably because she has a fringe. But that's, again, all important things to know before we start coloring. Because, again, a fringe can really impact your end result, especially if you want to hand paint or balayage the whole way up to the part. As soon as you cut that fringe, you're just going to have one, like, strong piece of blonde. So With our balayage application, typically we can go in with a strong V shape, creating a lot of separation between our blondes and creating dimension in between. You also have the option of going in, and obviously I accentuated this so you guys can see, with a strong W shape, giving you a little bit of dimension in between, covering a bigger surface area. You have your W shape. And then if you really just wanted to hand paint with a little bit of a shadow root, you can create a stronger band of just dark across the scalp and hand paint and saturate down through mid-length and ends. So you have a couple different options when it comes to balayage, and again, how you place it on the head and how it creates a dimension and movement. We're gonna come in because I can definitely see that this hair and the light moves towards her face. So unlike the top one, it moved away from her face. This one's moving towards. So everything we do is going to be diagonal forward.
Amber, before you start applying that, could you show the completed foils again?
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully you guys can see that. So this is our face. Those move diagonal back. These are horizontal in that center triangle. And then these move diagonal forward and they pivot into almost a vertical when you get back below the crown. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. For this section, I'm going to be using our Freedom Blonde. It is our clay-based lightener. It has its own dedicated developer in our Freedom Blonde developer. So you'll find kaolin clay in the powder, and then you'll find sticky polymers in the developer. And those work together to produce a flexible skin that allows the hair to still, it still encapsulates the hair, but it allows moisture to stay in there so you're still getting the maximum lift of up to 7 levels. We have 10, 20, 30, and 40 volume. If you're looking for the max 7 levels of lift, we encourage you to use 40 volume with it. And you don't have to use film or foils or plastic or anything like that. It can just open air process. I like to use one brush to mix with, and then I like to grab a clean brush to apply. And I like to use a paddle, but that's, you don't have to. There's a lot of different ways to create, to balayage with. Whatever works for you, go for it. I'm going to pre-section her out to get through it quicker. Everything is going to be diagonal forward. The cool thing about this is I'm going to work across that parietal ridge line so that I can get 2 different spills of color really easily. So my first section is going to be diagonal forward from right above the parietal to around her face. And I'm going to clip that away. My second section is going to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches deep from the parietal, above the parietal to down below the face. And I'm going to leave the crown out for right now. I'm going to clip that section away. Same thing, 1.5 inches should be about at the top of the crown to down to her face. Clip that section out of the way. And then that should leave me with 2 more sections. So right on the surface from her high point to the recession, and then that hairline that spills down towards her face. So that will be 2 more sections. So I'm going to clip all of them out of the way. Now, each of these sections, depending on where they're located, you can paint them all the exact same, meaning V's or W's, or just fully saturated. Or you can really focus on where they live at on the head and accentuate that, meaning I can get more lightness around her face. Let me clip that guy out of the way. And then build more depth in towards the interior. I'm going to load up my paddle. I like to keep just a thin layer on my paddle so that I don't overload my clean brush. Grab my clean brush I am going to do a little bit more strength around her face because you can see by the inspiration picture, she's got lightness and brightness around her face. And then I'm going to build in some depth and dimension back towards the interior.
Amber, are you still using the 15, 17, and 40 volume?
Great question. I am not. So I switched from the 15, 11, and 40 to Freedom Blonde, which is our clay-based lightener, and 40 volume Freedom Blonde developer.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. If you wanted to balayage with 15, 11 on natural hair, go for it. It definitely can be utilized for a balayage application as well. All right, so I am going to apply down their mid-length and ends. If you want the ends lighter and brighter, you can saturate the ends completely, or if you want to just surface paint the whole way down, I like to lay the hair on the back of, or on the top of the paddle and just saturate down on the top.
You're at 5 minutes.
Perfect. So not completely saturating, but just surface painting the whole way down. Now the cool thing about balayage, one of the things that I love most about it is not only does it give you a 3D end result, so you have light sides and you have dark sides, but you always over direct. You can paint where the hair lives, but when you over direct it, it creates softness. So by over directing and pulling this hair away from where it lives, when it swings back, it's going to have a softer, more diffused end result. So if you're still working on your balayage and you're not quite getting the softness that you're looking for, try over directing it more, because that will help you. That will definitely help as you're learning and as you're still perfecting it to get a softer end result by just moving it farther away from where it lives. Good tension on the hair is always key. So making sure that you have tension, that's going to help prevent any like divots in the hair or uneven end result. And good saturation is definitely always important as well. And then we're going to apply. Once you like what you see above, I always like to soften and brush up. Dry brush with the product that's on the hair and what's left on my brush before coming down and then applying to the top of the rest of that section. So that's section 2. And then we really continue doing the same thing the whole way up. For time's sake and for you guys to not watch me balayage another 3 sections, we're going to jump back to the top one. So no, this gets balayage the same way. This also would get balayage the same way. And then let's jump to that last piece on the very top. Do we have any questions on it so far, Jess?
Yep, we're good.
No? Everybody's just in it today. I love it. Did we ever get the answer on the cowlick part?
Yeah, I'll share that with you later.
Okay. Oh man, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Okay.
No, it was interesting.
Okay. So once we get to this top portion, again with balayage, knowing that it's kind of 3-dimensional, I have a top, a front, and a bottom. So to get lightness around the face and the top, I have 2 surface areas to paint. So I can paint here and I can paint here. So what I want to do is over direct, smooth that hair out, over direct it back and away. And I can paint right on that front hairline for a brighter end result when they pull up their hair or when they wear it curled away from their face. I get a strong pop of color right along that front hairline. I then can kind of walk the hair down, smoothing out the top. So now I have a whole new surface area to paint on top. I'm trying to stay out of y'all's way, so it's kind of awkward for me to hold her like this, and hopefully you can see. But I can paint as much or as little as I want on the top of her head. If I look at the picture, I can see that she's got a few strands of light before it starts to move into more dark towards the back. So I know that I need to gain a little bit more depth as I move back away from her face. So just like in my sectioning, I used a diagonal forward line. I'm going to use a diagonal back in my application. So now I have the hair that wants to move forward and the color that wants to move back. So now I get a really soft blended end result by making my line in my balayage go backwards and my line in my application go forward. So for maximum softness and blend, incorporate 2 different diagonals into the end result. So a diagonal in your sectioning and a diagonal in your application. And then you just surface paint the whole way down to the very end. So that's just a whole balayage section on the side with just a few balayage sections. And if you want to continue, you could do diagonals like that the whole way from nape to the top of the head. You can get through it really quickly with minimal sections with a beautiful dimensional end result. Great. Whew.
Our time is up already.
I know. I don't even know how that happened. Like I said at the beginning, this is definitely a program that we teach in the salons. So this is anywhere from a 3-hour to a 6-hour program. So I tried to share as much as possible in this 1 hour. I would let these process, and then the 1500 series can process for up to 40 to 50 minutes. Freedom Blonde can process for as long as you wanted to, up to 50 minutes or to whenever it gets to the end result that you're looking for. Finish it off with after color shampoo and balsam and then tone. So I hope that you guys enjoy this. This was a whirlwind of an hour. So again, hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you for always tuning in. It is a pleasure to see you guys. It is a pleasure to hear from you. Let us know what else you want to see. And look for more great education on KeuneEducation.com under our digital education tab. We've got a lot of videos on there. We have our care series coming out, so focusing on each regimen and care. So look for that on the pro page as well. But until next time, guys, it was good seeing everyone. I hope you have a great Wednesday. Stay safe, happy, and healthy, and know that Keune's here for you, and we support you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.